Well, Happy New Year. It's 2024, and everyone's talking about their dreams and their goals and their desires and their plans and what they want to happen this year. And so I thought it would be a great time to talk about manifestation and how do we manifest our dreams into reality? How do we get our desires to come to pass? That's the big question. And, I really don't talk about manifestation a lot because I feel like it's one of those things where there's so many understandings and definitions for it, and it can mean so many different things to so many different people. And I do think there's a lot of misconceptions around it. And the thing is, it's a very powerful truth. It's a universal law. It's something that anyone can tap into and experience, but there has to be a proper understanding of what it is and what it's not. Because for so many of us, the reason we haven't been able to experience that thing that we're wanting is because we have this misconception of how it's supposed to happen or how it's supposed to come to pass. In other words, we have a misconception about manifestation. And so I don't think manifestation is like, oh, I wish upon a star and then just things just fall from the heavens and I just get whatever I want. And no, I think that's a very lazy understanding of manifestation. I think it's much deeper. I think it's much more profound. And I think that if we read some of the ancient writings from the great saints and mystics and sages and teachers of all these great spiritual traditions, we find a much different definition and understanding of manifestation than just this whole wishful thinking thing. So I think there's power to it. I think that if we can actually learn the techniques of true manifestation, then we can actually experience our desires come to pass, and it can transform our lives, and our whole world will be changed. And so that's really the point of why I'm making this video, to clarify what I believe manifestation is, what it's not. And then I'm going to talk about really three things that we can do in order to make the manifestation process work and produce results in our life. So there's a line by Jesus in the Gospel of Mark, and to me, this is the essence of manifestation. I think Jesus said it best, and I think this is something that I know for myself. I read it so many different times, and I just didn't even recognize what he was saying. But a few years ago, somebody pointed this out to me, and I was like, wow, like I can't believe I missed this so many times. And I didn't really understand what Jesus was saying here. But once I understood it, once I saw it, and I started to apply this to my life was transformed and my reality changed. And so it's in the Gospel of Mark, I believe. And so what Jesus says is, when you pray, when you desire something, believe that you have it already. Believe that you've received it and it will be yours. So he doesn't say when you pray for something, when you desire something, do this and do that, and then maybe you'll get it someday. No, he says when you pray, when you desire something, when you really, really want something, here's the key: believe that you have it already. Well, what the heck does that mean? Like, how do I believe that I have something that I don't currently have? And so there's a book called Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. And if you don't know Neville Goddard, he was an author and a teacher, and he taught a lot about manifestation and the law of assumption and recognizing the divine presence within and experiencing union with God. And he wrote this book called Feeling is the Secret. And this whole book is basically about what Jesus is saying here in this verse. It's about manifesting your dreams, your desires into reality. And he has a very unique technique that he talks about in this book. And it's all about feeling. So it's assuming that whatever you're desiring that you don't currently have is already done. So you assume the feeling in the present moment when you're desiring something, instead of like thinking that it's out there somewhere and you don't have it. When you're praying for it, when you're asking for it, you believe that you already have it. So this is where imagination comes in. You assume the feeling, you experience that feeling in the present moment, and then what happens is once you begin to feel it, then that feeling gets accepted into your subconscious. And once it's accepted in your subconscious, then your outer world begins to reflect your inner world. Okay, so the subconscious is a very fascinating thing to talk about. But, basically, if we break down that verse, so when you ask in prayer, or when you have a desire, so that's the first step. We have to clearly define and figure out what it is that we are wanting. Then number two, believe that you have it already. That would be the part where we assume that it's already done. We experience the feeling of already having it in the present moment, although it doesn't seem that we have it in our perception, in our outer world. And then Jesus says, and it will be yours. And so the third step is to persist in that assumption, in that feeling, until the outer world, our outer world, is a reflection of our subconscious, of our inner mind. And so that's the technique, that's the process. And for the first one, which is to figure out what it is you really want, I think this is this is probably the most important step, because I've discovered in my own life that sometimes what I think I want isn't really what I want. And so if I'm living in my thinking mind all the time, what does that mean? Well, I talked about it in my previous videos. If you're living in the mind, if you're being controlled by the voice in your head, you're going to be living either in the past or the future. You're not going to be in the present. But the key is that the present moment is where you discover your heart's true desires, because the present moment, being in the present moment, is the heart space. And so before we can even really figure out what we really want, we've got to get into our heart space. We've got to stop being fixated on the past or the future, and we got to get into the sacred stillness of the present moment, which that's what meditation is for. Meditation is the vehicle that takes us from the thinking mind to the heart space. And once we're in the heart space, then we can know the heart's desires. So that's the first thing, is figuring out what you really want. What is your heart's desire? And then the second thing, it's the part of the verse where Jesus says, and this is my favorite part, believe that you have it already. So this is when Neville Goddard talks about assuming the feeling, assuming that it's done, feeling that in the present moment. And so in life, we don't get what we want. We get, or I'll say it like this. In life, it's not about, you don't get what you're wanting, what you're desiring. You get a reflection of who you're being. Okay? So think of your outer world as a mirror. It's reflecting your state of being. And so if you're in a state of being that's always focused on not having, and my desire, the thing I want, is out there, then that's going to be reflected. But if your state of being inward is, I have it, I am already there, and you're being the version of yourself that you want to be in the future, you're being that version right here, right now, then your outer world is going to begin to reflect that. And that's really how manifestation works. And then the third part of that verse, and it will be yours, is how Neville Goddard talks about persisting in that feeling, in that assumption, until the outer world begins to reflect the inner world. So as within, so without. Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you. So it starts from within and then it goes without. But it starts within you. And so for the second part of it, believe that you have received it, and that's assuming the feeling's already done in the present moment. Some things that can help us feel it in the present moment is meditation. And then another thing is music. I know for me, when I am listening to a song that really touches my heart, that brings me into the heart space, I honestly don't know what it is, but something about that song makes me very, I don't know. It's like I have this deep connection with my dreams and my goals and what I want to happen in the future. And it's like I can visualize it clearly while I'm listening to music in the present moment. And it's almost like I don't know. It's hard to explain, but there is a connection between meditation and music. And so music can put you into a meditative state where you're zoned in and you're completely absorbed in the present moment. And it's almost like, I don't know, music allows you to feel a lot better than when you're not listening to music. There's something about music that enables you to feel. And so I'm listening to music, I'm visualizing my dream, the version of myself I want to be, and I'm feeling that in the present moment, and the music just helps me stay there for a little bit longer, okay? And so meditation, music, and then, and I'll save this third one for the third point because I think it goes better. So the third point, and it will be yours, this is the part that Neville Goddard talks about where you're the subconscious acceptance of the desire is expressed and manifested in your outer world, and it will be yours. There's a technique that Neville talks about where he says right before you go to sleep is the best time to feel and assume and visualize your desire coming to pass and feeling it in the moment. Because if you're going to sleep, if you're drifting off into sleep thinking and feeling and assuming that whatever it is you're desiring is already done, then something magical happens when you are sleeping and the subconscious mind is doing its thing. And then you wake up the next day and it's like step by step, day by day, you're getting closer and closer and closer to having that outward manifestation of that inward desire. But the subconscious is working while you sleep to make that shift from the inner world to the outer world. And that's why it's so important. So what are some things that we can do to persist in the feeling, in the assumption? Well, every night, be disciplined about it. Every night before you go to sleep, feel it. Feel it. Drift off into sleep, imagining it and assuming that whatever it is that you're desiring is done. You have it. It's not something that's out there that you have to strive for to get. It's already within you, and you have to feel it. You have to assume. That's so key. It's the law of assumption, not the law of attraction. It's the law of assumption. You're assuming that it's done, that you're at the end. And then what happens after that? Well, when you're being that version of yourself that you want to be in the future, then your outer world, your external reality mirrors your state of being. And that's when the manifestation happens. That's the process of it. So in 2022, I had a desire to start writing. I wanted to write a book, but I had no experience. I didn't know the process of like, where do I even start? How do I start writing? What's the editing process like and the publishing process? And how do I find a publisher? All these things. I had so many questions. I was stepping into the unknown, but I had this desire. It was on my heart and I knew that it was just what I was supposed to do. So I started writing my first book on my phone, on the notes app on my phone. Just like when I was bored, I would just start writing, and that was 2022. That was like October of 2022. Well, I made a decision that that's who I was going to be. I said, I am going to be a writer. This is not just going to be a book that I'm writing just to write. I want to write books for the rest of my life. I want to be a full-time author. And I made that decision that that's who I am. That's my being. And when I made that decision and I wrote that book, and again, that was October of 22, it was like there was a shift that happened. And each day I would wake up and the writing process would begin to flow so much more naturally. And it was all the ideas were just coming to me. And the speed of my writing accelerated. And 5 months later, I had a published book. It was done. It was published. And it became an Amazon #1 bestseller. Okay? And again, I had no experience. I didn't know what I was getting into. But everything just fell into place. The universe began to open up doors for me, and everything worked out with the publishing company and the editing process. It just flowed into my life. Why? Because I decided in that moment in October of 2022 that this is who I am. I am going to be a writer. I want to be a full-time author. I want to write books for the rest of my life. And what happened? My outer world began to reflect my inner state of being. And that's when the manifestation happened. And it happened quickly. And that's the thing. This technique that Jesus talked about and Neville Goddard talks about is a manifestation technique that speeds up manifestation. Okay? And it depends on you. It's how quickly can you begin to feel it? Can you begin to assume it? And then can you begin to be it, embody it? Because the sooner you do that and the more consistent and the more you are persistent in that, then the quicker your outer world is going to reflect that. And it doesn't always happen overnight. And that's why Neville Goddard talks about this technique of every night before you go to sleep, stay disciplined on that and really make it a priority. And before you know it, things just start to happen. And it's really effortless. It's like I'm just embodying it. I'm feeling it. I'm believing it. I'm being it. That's the key, being. And because I'm being it, there is a reflection going on. And that's what my outer world is doing. And when you sleep at night, you let the subconscious go to work. The subconscious mind, when you're sleeping, is when the shift happens from an inner desire to an outer manifestation, an outer expression. Okay? So yeah, I wrote the book, published it. It was like better than I thought it was going to be. It was more successful than I thought it was going to be. And then a few months later, I got asked to co-author a book with my heroes, authors that I looked up to for years, that have written many books and that have been bestsellers, okay? So here I am like 22 years old. I just graduate from college, have no experience in writing, don't have a following, don't have my name out there, don't have any books prior, and I just take a chance. I follow that desire. I follow my bliss. I write this book. I decide that I'm going to be an author. I'm going to be a full-time writer. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. 5 months later, my outer world reflects this inner desire. It comes to pass. There's a manifestation. I write an Amazon bestseller for my first book. And then 3 months later, I get asked to write another book, to co-author a book with my heroes, people I looked up to. And all this happened in a short amount of time. And then that book was published in October of last year, 2023. So this is something that I learned, I applied to my life, and it works. It works. It's something that Jesus talked about. And again, I read this so many times and I just didn't see it. And I've learned this too, like when you're reading the Bible, you're going to see what you want to see. You're going to read what you want to read. You're going to interpret what you want to interpret. But the more you open your mind to really what the scriptures are saying, you'll be amazed at what you've missed, especially in the teachings of Jesus. So, yeah, and this is something that is for anyone. And so my question to you is, what are you believing for? What do you want? What do you desire? What are your dreams? What are your goals? Don't just write them down and then just hope they happen, and then 4 or 5 months later they don't happen. So here we go again, another year where I have all these New Year's resolutions and they never come to pass. No, this year, make a change. You can still write it down, but try this out. Try the technique from Jesus. Try the technique from Neville Goddard. They go hand in hand. They align with each other. They're essentially the same thing. Try it out and allow the manifestation process to do its thing. It's a lot simpler than what people make it. But I'm curious, what are you desiring? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And what do you want to happen this year? What version of yourself do you want to experience? What do you want to come to pass? Okay, what is it? Write it down, leave it in the comment section below, because I'm interested. I want to help you. I want to share what I've learned with you. I want to encourage you. I want to support you in that. And I want to help you with this process of manifestation, because you can dream all day long and you can have all these desires and goals, but it's time to manifest. It's time for those desires, for those dreams to express themselves in our outer reality. So, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video informative, helpful, and insightful. And if you've enjoyed it, leave a thumbs up at the bottom of the screen and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Happy New Year.